Namaste and welcome to another episode of Itihasdhir. Today we have with us a very distinguished scholar and author, Professor Kausik Gangopadhyay ji with us, and he is known for his incisive work on geopolitics, religious conflicts, civilizational studies, with a sharp focus on India and its issues. And we're going to discuss his recent book, The Joy Bangla Deception, which is co-authored with Dev Rath, and it critically examines the political and ideological transformation of Bangladesh, and it exposes how Islamism has strategically concealed behind the facade of Bengali nationalism. And the book is very bold and unapologetic. In fact, Brihat has described it as a visceral and passionate account of Bangladeshi politics and history from a Hindu perspective. So, welcome to Itihasdhir, sir. And I want to start by asking you, Ki, what inspired you to write the book, The Joy Bangla Deception? Because the title is also very oxymoronic. So, how did you arrive at the title, and what does the phrase Joy Bangla represent historically versus what it represents today?
Um, First of foremost, I'm a very proud Bengali with my Bengali identity. So this book is not written exactly from a Hindu point of view.
Hmm.
It is written from a Bengali point of view, I would say. I mean, the, maybe the distinction may not be too relevant for some of us and all, but it is relevant for many Bengalis who considers themselves human beings, not Hindu, but still Bengali. It is also written for those people, right? Um, Now, I was a sort of a believer in the Joy Bangla story. I used to tell people that, well, these Bangladesh, they have done so amazing things and all. And whatever I have written in this book, I used to say, believe in the opposite things. And I have done my research, and then I have found whatever I have believed, सब कुछ झूठ है. So whatever we knew, everything is a, we have been completely deceived. So this is why this is the Joy Bangla deception. Um, First and foremost, the this term, this word phrase, Joy Bangla. If you
Hmm.
ask any Bengali, I mean, this is a very popular phrase. There are many sort of Bengali organizations. I mean, the ruling establishment in West Bengal, they call, their slogan is Joy Bangla, right? And
Hmm.
they sort of think it means victory for Bengal, for
Hmm.
Bengali language or for Bengal region. It could be either. Uh, but that's what it is. They think. However, I'm quoting, this is not my words. I could be accused of sort of misrepresenting things. This is why the entire book I have presented Bangladesh from their point of view, from
Their
their writers
perspective.
and all that things, right? So I have very, very important Awami League politicians. So right now, after 2024 August, it's not anymore
Hmm.
Awami League, it's anti-Awami League. They have banned Awami League and all. But Awami League, which is supposed to be the secular fabric of Bangladesh, that politician said Joy Bangla is never a slogan of the Hindus, it is only a slogan of the Muslims. And why did he say so? And then he explained. So essentially, he said that Joy Bangla means conquest of Bengal. And the conquest can only be done by the Muslims because Hindus are originally there. So the conquerors can only be the Muslims. And he said that this is, and what he said is sort of manifested throughout. Maybe I'll explain as it come along. But the idea of Joy Bangla itself, the slogan itself is a deception that is even
Yes,
perpetrated
yes.
every day on the Bengalis.
You've also talked about it in length, starting में ही. In fact, introduction में you talked about it. That the wise Joy Bangla deception.
Right. So the introduction I gave is sort of a total snapshot of the book, why the book has been written to motivate people. Yeah.
So essentially, first of all, we don't get a lot of authors who co-authored a book with someone. So how was that process? That is the uh, curious reviewer aspect of us. Uh, the historical aspect is when you write a work like Joy Bangla, obviously it goes along against a lot of the preconceived notions that we have today, or what we have been taught as as a society who says Joy Bangla so proudly, right? So, what were the primary sources or methodologies that you relied upon while researching your work?
This is a very good question. So my co-author, he sort of wrote a very smaller version of the book. It's published in some webgens. That was like 2018 or so. And he predicted this is how things are going to be. I mean, if Hasina sort of in some time will fall and then things will be very dreadful for the Hindu minorities there. So living as Hindu minority is not easy thing there. I have friends there and all, but it has become sort of horrible and sort of near fatalistic event nowadays. I mean, it's very difficult to sort of even think that you will surplus, you will survive this year. That sort of a thing it has become. Now, question is, how did he do it? So one thing what we have done, we have gone to the primary sources. We did not want to believe what others are seeing in Bangladesh and reporting it. That is sort of a very easy way, but that's a very I don't know, convenient way, easy way, but it's a sort of it is the way to be deceived. You have to sort of look into what they are writing about themselves, and you have to read them thoroughly. So we have read a lot of the literature. It is easy for us because they write in Bengali, even though the language has some issues here and there, but you can more or less understand it. So you have sort of studied that. That's one sort of a way we have done it, and of course we talk to many people there, understand the realities that is unfolding different times. And it is not also a sort of a personal project in some sense, because you are need to you can't nobody knows everything of the world, even in a for a small topic, right? And then you need to sort of talk to many people, imbibe their things. I actually have read also the mainstream books that have been written on Bangladesh. There is books written in Columbia University Press, but those books are sort of, I would say, truisms. I mean, sort of very trivial things, no insight on all. So we decided to write a book that would have will be some insight to people. This is what it is. And what is very important is that Amartya Sen, a very, very noted person, Nobel laureate, he is saying in 2019, when my co-author sort of published and he's predicting things, that he is sort of saying that Hindus are not very broad-minded persons. The Muslims or Bangladesh are quite broad-minded, and the exactly opposite thing we are seeing now. So basically, there is a problem in their knowledge. I mean, I'm sort of accepting that he must be a benevolent person. There's no man intention or anything like that to deceive people. But then his knowledge is completely incomplete. I mean, it cannot be further from truth, and that he has to reality, and that maybe Amartya Sen is too old to change, but the other liberals they sort of understand that and change their idea.
So, my question also revolves around the fact that when you research about a country like Bangladesh and a topic like Joy Bangla, you would obviously come across, I'm guessing, a lot of Urdu based sources as well. So, how do you tackle something like that? Because historically, I mean, all of us, when we study about something like the Indian freedom movement, we see that a lot of speeches that were given at that time in Urdu, when they were translated into English, they were translated as something that was entirely different, that was meant to portray those speeches as a secular, sort of a translation than actually what had been said in Urdu. So, how do you sort of rely with that if there were any Urdu texts as such that you researched with?
So Urdu I cannot read personally. But then what happened? A lot of the material that is in Urdu is a lot of the times is sort of written in Urdu leaning Bengali. So you can, I mean, Bengali script, but sort of their way. I mean, from that you can make out of the things a lot. So basically, this is how our things run. And secondly, another thing has happened in Bangladesh. They have translated in Bengali. To their credit, they have translated a lot of material in Bengali, the other materials and all. But I mostly relied upon what they are saying about themselves, which is everything is in Bengali, right? So that is sort of the most important thing.
So, sir, also, Bangladesh came into existence because of the 1971 war, and it is often it's represented, अभी जैसे हमने बात किया, as a secular nationalist struggle. So, how have you dissected this and challenged the very widely accepted narrative?
So the most of the narrative is there that Bangladesh is result of a language movement. The truth cannot be further from truth. I mean, further from the reality. So basically, if you look at Pakistan, they have honored Bengali language consistently at par with Urdu from 1956 onwards. In their constitution, it was written, and they have made some their national monuments. I mentioned two of them. In Lahore, they have made Minar-e-Pakistan, and in Karachi, they made Mazar-e-Qaid to honor Jinnah and other leaders. Both the places, if you go even today, I have inserted pictures in my book, photos in my book from Wikimedia, and then we can see clearly the Bengali scripts are sort of as dignified as the Urdu ones. So this is a complete nonsense, and even I studied their arguments against Urdu. There was no argument at all. Mujibur Rahman came to spotlight as the most prominent Bangladeshi, I mean, East Pakistani leader in late 1960s through a program, through a movement which is called 6 Points Program. So this is there in my book in chapter 6. None of the 6 points, none of the 6 points of this 6 point program is about language. It is out and out economic, that we need more money, we need more representation, we need this and that. Everything is economic. But then what happens? People don't like to say that we are greedy. They sort of put a sort of a cultural attribute in their motive. So they said we are Bengalis and all, but uh, that is sort of a facade, you might say, and that actually came because of the fact, and this is where the military brilliance of Sam Manekshaw is responsible. After the collapse of the Pakistani army, all the Pakistani soldiers, 93,000 or so, were taken from Bangladesh to India. So they kept in Indian prisons after 16 December 1971. So this entire land, there is no army but the Indian army. Now Mujib, he is a smart person indeed, and he never sort of burnt his boats. You know one thing, he never left Pakistan, came to India. He never did that. He actually stayed there, and he was actually taken by the army. He sort of was captured. He knew that he is going to be captured, but he never tried any attempt to leave, because he always was seeking sort of a prime ministership of Pakistan. It was not an easy thing. The Punjabi coterie wouldn't allow East Pakistani to become prime minister. So that was the real tussle is all about. Now, what happened after the collapse and all? There is no choice from Mujib's point of view but to put a facade of secular socialist thing. Why? Because this is also the heydays of communism. And this heydays of communism and this Bangladesh, it could have not been created except the aid of Soviet Union. When the war started, America sent their dreaded Seventh Fleet, the naval fleet that can destroy anything that time. And then Russia, I mean Soviet Union, they sent their atomic submarines
Yes,
and big
yes,
warships,
yes.
and they that sort of prevented, right? Otherwise, there would have been no Bangladesh at all, right? At any rate. So because of that, Mujib has to sort of pretend that we are trying to create a secular thing. And he did the most convenient thing, which is a Bengali sort of a thing, nationalism pretension.
So while we are on the topic of both military conquest and ideology, we've dwelt to some extent on the military role that we had in the creation of the state of Bangladesh. What I would also want to know is what sort of an, if any, what sort of an ideological role did we play? Of course, a lot of the history of Bangladesh in terms of making uh, Mujibur Rahman the prime minister there, it often is shown, at least in Indian media, it is shown that it revolves around the Nehru sort of a dream for Bangladesh as well. Is that somewhere true? Uh, Mujibur, of course, because of this, at least in Indian media again, is presented as an ultra secular leader that was promoted to, become the leader of Bangladesh. Is that representation correct? And today, when we talk about Awami League, and it has its secular image that you spoke about, and despite that, you in the very beginning you said what the minister says about Joy Bangla, and despite the secular image, how have they facilitated the Islamization of Bangladesh?
That's a lot of points are involved in your answer. So, first and foremost, you do not have ideology and hard power in isolation. Both of them sort of go together hand in hand. If you have only hard power, no ideology, you can't win. Many cases that is sort of true. In many, and if you have only ideological power but no hard power, again that's sort of also doesn't work. So you need both of them to sort of do it. So from that point of view, that's why I've given nuanced picture of both the factors involved. But I will tell you something, and this is not something people know. A lot of people know. Mujib wrote an autobiography. In the autobiography, he himself is admitting. So the biggest in the partition times, the biggest massacre happened in Kolkata. The entire story of massacres during partition. So partition of India is sort of a very neglected affair. It created immense amount of brutality, immense amount of violence in the world history that we sort of negate a lot of the times. 2 million people, 1 to 2 million, officially it could be much more, people died. And that's at that time. And 10 to 20 million people got displaced. It's a big phenomenon, right? That time, if you think about the population, uh, at least 20% people of Indian subcontinent was affected. And the question is, how did it start? It started with the declaration of direct action by All India Muslim League. They said, either you create Pakistan or we will see you on the street. So basically, they said that we will create a lawless affair throughout if you don't agree to Pakistan. And this is how they are threatening. How did they demonstrate? They demonstrated just 1 year before Indian independence. Indian independence, 15 August 1947. They started their massacre 16 August 1946. It is called the Great Calcutta Killing. That time, Bengal, the undivided Bengal, was ruled by Muslim League. And they, on the day of the direct action, they gathered thousands of gundas, hooligans, throughout different places. And the that time administrator of Bengal, Sohrawardy, he was the Muslim League head of the province. That time used to be called prime minister, essentially a chief minister. And he sort of called it a holiday. And then all the gundas were there in the hooligans are there in the main ground of Kolkata. And they are going and they are sort of started attacking the innocent people's homes. And this affair went for 4 days. Now, Mujib is writing in his autobiography, he was there in the street 16th August as a Muslim League person. You can imagine how secular he is. And this is a story that very few know. But I would not blame Nehruji on that. I mean, Nehruji has a lot of things to blame, but Bangladesh is not one of them.
And sir, what do you, first of all, when we talk about Direct Action Day, we're not just talking about the killing of Hindus, right? I think we're also talking about mass desecration of temples. Of what I have read, there were a lot of burning of Hindu homes and places of worship as well. So, I mean, with that in mind, how has Awami League exactly maintained that secular sort of a cover that it has even today to some extent? And how does it then facilitate the Islamization of Bangladesh if it is so secular?
So Awami League is sort of a, you might say, moderate Islamism. It is Islamism. It does not stop from destroying secular fabric, but it wants to keep a significant minority inside Bangladesh. Why? Because they are very smart people. They knew that geostrategically they cannot fight India. So they are practical people. Now, some people, the people that got power after August 2024, they are much violent, much extremist, but at the same time, they are quite stupid in some sense of the term. Because if they are really coming to hard power wise, then India will act, and then they can't really match hard power wise with India. That is a sort of fact of the thing that their army general knows, and that's why the army general now is trying to stop that maddening crowd that they are taking over. That sort of a thing he's trying to stop. But the ordinary people, they don't know. But Awami League politicians, the core, they know about it very well. But they know something. They know that their protection demands existence of some significant minority. So now, Pakistan, Bangladesh has a population of more than 20 crores. So Hindus are, even now, even though they are only 7% of the population, it is still more than a crore of Hindus. And there are also some Buddhist Chakmas and all. And then these people, they can take as a hostage that if you don't do too much, I will also do a lot of persecution if you don't do. And for that, they have to be the savior of the minorities, right? So they have this image that they are the savior of the minorities. So they have to be placated. And this is how they sort of maintain. So there's a status quo between India and the Bangladesh establishment. We also don't want to dig up Mujib and all, because we feel this is the best option we have in Bangladesh. If you go for a total crashing of things, then right now what is happening now, then it will be very volatile situation. It will rock Bengal, West Bengal. It will rock Assam. It will be it is not a very pretty for us also. That's what we feel, and this is why we sort of go with this thing. And for Bangladesh also, they want to slowly grow. They want to hijack the Bengali identity so that they can claim themselves as authentic sort of Bengalis, and this is their plan.
So, sir, coming on to my next question, it's about the decline of both Hindus and Buddhists in Bangladesh post 1971. And I also want to read a passage from your book where you've actually quoted, the Indian Commissions of Jurists in 1965, where they observed the Hindus who were killed in the waves of 1950, 1964, 65, and where witnesses have stated that, if I'm to quote from the book only, that they were offered the choice of embracing Islam or death. Women were largely forced and married off, even if their husbands were alive. And apart from that, their children were butchered. And in fact, the International Commission of Jurists in 1971 concluded with this very strong statement that, in our view, there is a strong prima facie case that the crime of genocide was committed against the group comprising the Hindu population of East Bengal. So, can we discuss a little bit about the demographic decline that has been going on constantly, specifically of the Hindus and Buddhists in Bangladesh or post the 1971 war? And is that, I mean, obviously, like I know this is a very redundant point to say, ki, वो तो बोले थे कि वो secular constitution है, like I mean we know that secular is just the word, but is this not a direct contradiction of their stance of the secular constitution, and adoption of Islam as state religion became the function of all the of all the political sphere in Bangladesh.
Yeah, so there are two things. I don't know which one shall I tackle first. One is the genocide thing, of course.
Yes.
Second is the secular constitution thing. Now, there is this secular constitution of Bangladesh is sort of a myth. Bangladesh is as secular as Pakistan. In fact, Pakistan is more secular than Bangladesh. I'm not selling out of nothing. I'm giving you all the facts with this thing. The state religion of Pakistan is Islam. State religion is Bangladesh is also Islam. And it also says in the constitution of Bangladesh begins with an Quranic phrase, Bismillah Rahman Rahim. So that is sort of, it cannot do for a secular constitution. Secular constitutions will be in the name of people, right? Indian constitution prefers we the people. But someone is invoking a god in the constitution, that cannot be a secular one. The second idea is, if you look at the first Islamic bank, that is not in Bangladesh, in Indian subcontinent. That is not in Pakistan. That is in Bangladesh. The first Islamic university, that is not in Pakistan. That is in Bangladesh. Friday as the weekly holiday, it is costing Bangladesh a lot of money because the international stock markets are sort of work like Saturday, 5-day format, Saturday, Sunday. And that's why all the countries, they actually adopt this system. If you want to break from the system, you will lose. And that's why, but Bangladesh is doing it from consistently from 1983 onwards. Well, Pakistan, they in between adopted it, they went back to them Saturday, Sunday format. It is sort of a myth. No, I mean, if you look at the laws, both Pakistan and Bangladesh, they use sort of like India way. Personal laws, they use Sharia approved laws for Muslims. But in matters of criminal laws, they use basically the British laws that is sort of been set up. So legally and morally, constitutionally, Pakistan is sort of no way worse than Bangladesh in terms of Islamism. That's what the facts are telling. And if you look at this demographic decline, this is sort of a long story. But what I would say is sort of this is what in my previous book, The Majoritarian Myth, I say that not all violence can ever be observed by media. It is impossible. But you will always see that what happens. Suppose, no, how does it happen? How does people decide to leave and all? So suppose your daughters are going to school and they are sort of being taunted by some rowdies and other people. Then if you are trying to do some trade or something, particularly your shop is being looted, not others. So these things sort of give people hints, and the clever people, they sort of take the hint, they sell their house, they move away, and this is how the demographic aggression works. This is sort of a standard pattern in many societies, right? And then if you look from that point of view, you don't really need really big violence to make people get out, right? If you look at Kashmir, for example, in Kashmir, the Pandits, it was the biggest exodus um, for a group within India after independence, after partition. So about, official figure wise, 120,000 Kashmiri Pandits migrated out. Kashmiri Pandits claim 3 lakh, whatever be the case. But how many Pandits really died in the violence before this exodus? It is only a few hundreds. A few hundreds is sad and all, maybe 1,000, maybe, the biggest number I was told is 1,500. Maybe it's a big number, you might think, in some sense, but it is much lesser number compared to many lakhs of people moving away. It is not even 1% of that, right? So for big exodus, you don't really need big violence. You need to do a lot of small violence, and that has to be sanitized culturally. So what have Bangladesh have done? They have erased, they have created a very different history than we know of. Most Bangladeshis, they don't know that India liberated Bangladesh. In fact, some Bangladeshis believe that Bangladeshis fought with the Indian army to get independence. This is sort of the way it works there. Now, if you have this sort of a picture of history, and in the history textbooks, Hindus are sort of given only derogatory things, and then you sort of it actually is, in some sense, it creates a justification for the violence against them, and that's what it has happened throughout.
So, when we talk about the Bengali identity, um, and we talk about the Joy Bangla Deception, in what ways do you think the Bengali cultural identity has been Islamicized in Bangladesh? And when we talk about the narrative of Bengali nationalism, which has now been hijacked, as you say, how has that sort of been co-opted to suppress or erase dharmic traditions? And are we seeing any kind of revival or resistance that is emerging either in West Bengal or in Bangladesh right now?
So the hijacking of the identity has been discussed a very prominent Bangladeshi literature. His name is Humayun Azad. So Humayun Azad said that before we were Muslims, then we become Muslim Bengalis, then we become Bengali Muslims, then we became Bengalis. Then this is like before 1971. Then we started going back. Again, from Bengalis, we have become Muslim Bengalis, then we become Bengali Muslims, and then eventually became Muslims. So this is for sort of the arc he sort of described. Essentially now, whenever in Bangladesh someone is mentioned Bengali, it means he is not a Hindu. In fact, it is said Hindus are regularly introduced as Indians. So whenever there is a Hindu, suppose there is no connection with him with India, he is no, his forefathers are there, he is still there, he has never, but he will be referred to my Indian friend to other people. And this I have described in my book also. One American researcher stayed there, Yvette Rosser. She just died in COVID, 2020-21, I think. She stayed there and then she was introduced to Hindu as Indian. So if this is a sort of a process of otherization. Hindus are sort of now have become Indians and Muslims have become Bengalis. So this is how the identity is going up, and this is not only in Bangladesh. This is they have the support of the Western liberal class, which is why BBC have done a poll, 1,000 years greatest Bengali, and who is it? No, it is not Sri Chaitanya Dev, who is considered the great patron of revival in Bengal. It is not Raja Ram Mohan Roy. It is not Rabindranath Tagore. It is not Subhash Chandra Bose. It is Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, who is the greatest Bengali of 1,000 years. So this is how things have become. Even the Encyclopedia Britannica is sort of describing that Bengali nation started from migration of many people from Middle East in the 8th century. Um,
So, sir, I wanted to bring back the previous point that I had about the genocide of, the Hindus as well as the Buddhists, and with reference to the Chakmas, uh, if we can talk about that. Because, like, economically, they were a very prosperous people, and uh, how that changed over time.
so Chakma's story is very sad one. But why I have brought it up particularly one reason. Whenever the Hindu-Muslim thing comes, any context, people say, well, it's a Hindu-Muslim thing. So what does they mean? What do they mean? So they mean basically it has a sort of a centuries of history and blaming each other and all this sort of a thing. You cannot make any conclusion of whose side the fault lies. Now, if you go to the Chakmas, it is not so difficult to see the real picture. Chakmas were as far away from Hindus as they are from the Muslims. They are tribals. They don't speak Bengali. They have a Chakma language and all. Now, what happened? Chakmas were there in this particular hilly regions. It is to be called Chattogram Hill Tracts, Chittagong Hill Tracts. In the hill tracts, the British, they have a pact that they will not intervene in the matters of Chakmas. They will put a British administrator nominally, but otherwise all the it will be management, right? This was a sober consensus that we allow also the tribals in India because we don't meddle into other people's their own laws and all that they follow traditions. And this is why in India you cannot buy a land, right, in the tribal areas legally, right? You can't do that. Now in Chakma, in the case of Pakistan, when Pakistan created, this consensus was broken. They are broken, but Pakistanis, they are sort of started sort of coming. They sort of the Chakma police, the police force in this Chattagang Hind tracts, they are Chakmas, but they were transferred elsewhere. Elsewhere, people were came brought in here. But this was and there are a lot of problems with that time. There's a lot of violence and all. Uh, there's a dam that was created, but the Chakmas, they are evicted, and they were told that, and the persons who was in charge of rehabilitation, he was told that these tribals, they can live based on the leaves of the tree. So don't worry about giving them food or any support. So that was the official approach. It is written in the written communication. Forget about what is being told and all. And then what happened after Bangladesh is created? These attacks were became 100 times more. And then this Chittagong Hill tracks at 1947, it was 100% Chakma, almost 100%. I mean,
Hmm.
not Chakmas alone, the other tribes.
Majority,
Huh?
majority were, हाँ जी, majority were चकमास only ना उधर पे in the
Different
Chittagong.
tribal groups are there, but uh, majority are Chakmas. But I'm thinking tribals are 98, 99%.
Hmm.
That sort of a thing. But now it has become almost like less than half. More people are like the Bengalis of Bangladesh. They have sort of came there and they have captured everything. And the violence is quite touching. I've described it. It is sort of
Yes.
so I urge the reader to read it because it is also sort of very painstaking for me to narrate those kind of
Because
pains.
it's
Hmm.
again like we do talk about a lot of aspects कि हाँ ठीक है genocide हुआ but जैसे uh, tribals पे क्या impact हुआ like and इनका तो like they had a very good economy like you have talked about it. I will not talk too much about it, and you've talked about their economy, you've talked about how their society treated women. Everything was in a very like it was a very flourishing society, and उसका bit by bit जो destruction किया गया है specific attacks के उसमें. So I mean it's also very painful to read about it, and this is just one aspect of it. So, sir, इसी के follow up में I wanted to ask कि what do you think are the long-term implications जो ये Bangladeshi migrations हैं, into Indian border states like Assam and Tripura? Like majority of Assamese markets in Guwahati, I recently went there, they are run by illegal Bangladeshi immigrants. And on
And
Fridays,
in
uh,
one way, it is a continuation of what Aditi was saying because it is an ongoing attack on the real identity because you are
yes,
technically capturing booths politically, you're capturing economy, you're capturing living spaces, everything.
So the
and it
living
is
place,
coming up,
Levensrom, that's sort of there's a book there, how
yes.
Bangladeshis are sort of creating a Levensrom. Now,
And what it
Sunny,
was वो
yeah, please.
circle, I'm so sorry, वो circle में areas को like they start taking over the market like undercut करके, which is like a very old thing. It's come to the point where on Fridays if they're not there the market shuts. Like market के off days used to be different days. I think Tuesday and Thursday होता था शायद, and now it is a Friday. So when they are not there the markets are shut. And मतलब and जो Indian government say, why are they not treating this as like a civilizational issue? Like, is this something we should talk about more? Is this just something कि उसमें और conflict होगा? Like, if we make it like a political thing, should this not be a civilizational issue as well?
So again, the story, I mean, it's a very good question. I mean, that's what the purpose of the book, to come to a remedy. I have described some in my conclusion, but essentially there is a soft side and there is a hard power.
Hmm.
Soft side, we have to create a great Indian narrative. How India is an exceptionally pluralist society, what are the hallmarks of this society, and how this has to be protected. Unfortunately, we have not created anything in the last 11 years since there is a change in establishment. So basically, the narrative is still the same. All the sociology departments, social sciences, everything we are running the left narrative. This cannot go on, this narrative cannot help you solve the problems. For you have to create a great Indian exceptional narrative experience, and there is no substitute for that. And we have to understand the terms like being an Ahomia, being a Bengali. These are the celebration of the indigenous values, and the same indigenous values are called Hinduism or whatever we call it. So we did not call ourselves Hinduism. Hinduism is a term used by the Christians, missionaries,
Hmm.
to call us a religion, right? So our values we used to celebrate. We used to call the good things as dharma, and we said we are good people, we are dharmic people. And so this narrative has to be done. It cannot be there in a sort of like only in some podcast and some YouTube channel. This has to be mainstream. This has to be academically accepted. This has to be done. So there is a lot of sadhana for that, but that's a different topic for me to discuss. But this is the one way. Hard power wise, if you look at this Bangladesh, you have to create a constituency for secularism in Bangladesh. They who are sort of real seculars and all that would require one we can start with asking for an homeland for the evicted Hindus of Bangladesh. So the evicted Hindus were like Hindus are 28% in 1947. Now they are 7%. And they have sort of come here, some of them became victims of genocide. So where is the compensation? If you are talking about compensation for Gaza victims and all, we could ask for the compensation in Bangladesh. And if you ask for this compensation, then we need to see, I mean, we have to create some lands in Bangladesh where these persecuted people could live and run their own sort of affairs, right? This is how we have to create a buffer state between Bangladesh and India, which is will be sort of influenced by us. And with the narrative, we have to sort of win it. So there is no hard way, there is no sort of easy way. There is always a mixed approach, a calibrated approach. The thinking has to be there. I think in India we have a sort of a decent understanding of the hard way, hard
Hmm.
power, because we have seen this war 3 days ago, and then India done quite well. I mean, there's no even singular mention of any Indian victim anywhere in media. I think so. It is quite likely that India did not suffer any single casualty, civilian wise, right? But of course, Pakistan they themselves admitted so many casualties and all sort of things. So we have done hard power wise. But
Hmm.
hard power alone does not guarantee you anything, right? Then communism would have not fallen. Their hard power was the best, even in 1989. But they could
Hmm.
not retain their narrative. So the narrative development is not happening unless it happens. So one problem in our sort of system that I see, all the positions are like 5 year, 3 year sort of positions. So all the people who are there, they're thinking out their survival for 3 years and 5 years.
Hmm.
And this actually creates a sort of a lethargy, inertia for a long-term thinking.
So I have a follow-up question. Uh, it deals with Shatru board. So like you mentioned, we've to also when we talk about the narrative. Now, Bengal is the hub of all things intellectual, but we also see a lot of communists come out of Bengal, or um, I wouldn't want to generalize it, but Bengal say like a lot of Bengalis, they would want to be very secular and they lack a certain Shatrubodh in spite of persecution happening in front of them. And how can that be countered? Like, as you are also a Bengali,
Hmm.
how do you see that countering? Like, so you said ना कि पहले आपका एक अलग view था बांग्लादेश को भी लेके, and now you have come to this side. So how do we ensure that that happens with the rest of the population as well, majority?
So my maternal grandfather was a communist whole timer. So I know communism inside out in a way. The point is, communism has inspired a kind of a thinking. Some of them may be good at that point of time and all, but now it is completely irrelevant, and it creates a sort of an unreal sort of existence for them. So they must have seen some processions in Kolkata. They are asking for why there is attack against Pakistan and all. These communists are doing it. So this is because of this unreal world they live in. They don't know. They don't have any understanding of the world. So these people are this. They are the victims of this deception. Joy Bangla is one aspect, but they are victims of many. There are many deceptions going on in the world. They are also victims of some other deceptions. The only way you cannot really counter deception by only talking good things.
Mhm.
You have to show them the reality. Reality has to be unfolded. That is happening in West Bengal because we pursued communism. It was the West Bengal was the number one state in revenue wise in 1947, just before partition. And Calcutta that time, it was the second best city of the entire British Empire after London. We have fallen a lot from there. So reality is unfolding what would happen if you pursue communism. But I will just say something else, use a criticism from the other side. The problem of the non-communists in India and much more probably in Bengal is that we also lack a sort of a strategy. We are very reactive people. We react to communists. This is not where you can win. The winning people has to be think first and then act later. In our case, we act fast and then think later. So this is something this has to be done. I mean, yeah, you want to say
Most
something
of
else?
our narrative, most of the narrative that we also have from our side coming, वो reactive रहता है कि like some fact checker says something, so we have to react to that. We don't come with like we are not generating the newer content. Yeah, we are not talking about the newer thing. We will talk about the home kingdom because someone from the other side has said something bad about it. वी आर नॉट टॉकिंग अबाउट इट खुद से या बंगाल का ही हम खुद से बात नहीं करते हैं majority of it is because you are angry about something.
So that is not the way to win. That's my humble
Hmm.
point. So for winning, you need to do that. And this communism, this is the very important point. We associate Bengal with communists. I mean, non-Bengalis. I know the story and all, and it helped me in some sense some of the times. But the point is why Bengal became communist, because it was quite prosperous. We have a lot of thinking and going on with prosperity. We thought that let's be communist. It's probably even better than this. Now, this same phenomenon is being repeated now. I personally see much more communists in Delhi now, cultural communists in Delhi now, than in Kolkata. Kolkata, this particular very small echelon, very small. I mean, it is they are in communists and all, but they have no real clout on the working class people, on all those sort of things. But they have a lot of clout on in narratives and social media, but they don't have a clout on the ordinary lives of the people. But if you go to Delhi, I think this echelon is much bigger. I mean, a lot of people there is cultural communist in Delhi, much more than in Kolkata.
So, sir, in Delhi IIC में एक तरफ there will be a talk about how to save dharma and on the other side there is a simultaneous talk happening in the other hall about countering dharma and how to focus on liberalization मतलब it's
So we have failed,
strange.
right? In spite of hard fought, we have not created the narrative. So what I'm trying to say that the Bengal is a case study. It is Bengal. I'm saying it is not an exception in by itself. The Bengal will be replicated throughout India. I mean, we can see the language issues. They are happening in Tamil Nadu. They are happening now in Karnataka. I'm pretty sure it will go everywhere. Unless we have a narrative to counter them, it will go on. So better to take lesson from that rather than just criticizing a certain population. That's what it is.
On the topic of solutions, and while we are talking about sort of Shatru Bodh and the current trends, uh, first of all, two parts. One, we're talking about Bengalis and Bangladeshis. So the first part is when we talk about Bangladeshis, what sort of a resistance of some dharmic nature are they following to sort of guarantee their survival? I mean, there's no guaranteeing it when you have a hostile government against you. But what sort of a dharmic resistance are we seeing there? Because when we see that consciousness or a community is under threat, we would imagine that it has a higher amount of Shatru Bodh than, say, someone living in a peaceful sort of a land in a peaceful, under a peaceful government, non-hostile government. And the second is when we talk about Bengalis in Bengal, with respect to the infiltration and demography change and then the political trends, how do we ensure that Bengalis are largely then insulated from the Joy Bangla deception?
Right. So both are two aspects of the same story. So as much as you resist, you will understand create the narratives on on. On Bangladesh, you see the problem is different. You are living in a place where any day the hooligans can come, the dacoits can come, and they will perpetrate atrocities. So in a micro level, Hindus are there sort of staying united. They are guarding their own property. They are working to fight this. I know, right? 3 4 days ago, many homes, one particular village by uh, whom we call the scheduled caste people, their home Matua people, their entire village was burnt by hooligans. I mean, all the homes were burnt. So so you have to basically fight right against all these sort of things, and they are doing it. But if you want to say any bigger than that, that is very difficult in a place where your vote has basically no value. You're 7%, but this 7% has no value. And secondly, the another thing is now the idea of the vote is gone even, right? I mean, the way now Bangladesh is running, even that is not there. But there is also a lot of people who are doing a lot of narratives. There is a person, Dr. Kusal Baran Chakrabarti. He actually, so they he tracked how Hindus are being deceived about their own dharma. So he created a thread and he actually posts regularly. He's based on Chattogram. So he regularly posts basically, this is a problem, this is a problem. No, I mean, this is the Hindu position, and you know your position very well. So he is sort of the Rajiv Malhotra for the Bangladeshi Hindus. I mean, he is sort of trying to awaken them and all. So that way it is going on. But the push should come from Indian government. And there, unfortunately, Indian government has not done anything. After 2024 August, when the Hindus are being persecuted, except some diplomatic protests, what have we done? The most prominent Hindu sannyasi, one ISKCON person, Chinmay Krishna Das, he was arrested a very, very shabby charge. I mean, it was said that he was holding something, and then says apparently some flag was little higher than Bangladesh flag. Nobody has seen also who held that flag and all. And then he was suddenly there is a big case came. He was called a terrorist and all. Whereas the actually Al Qaeda inspired terrorists they are released from jail and they are told to come and do terror in India. Then yeah, so now he the advocate who tried to defend him, he was beaten and sent to hospital. The other advocates, when they came, they are sort of lathi charged and they are sort of dispersed. So this is how they are treating, and Indian government has not done anything. I mean, yes, must be there, could be there that inside some strings they are pulled here and there. But as an ordinary citizen, I don't see any real impact of Indian government being done there.
So, sir, I want to ask the final question. What would you want the younger readers, because we आगे जाके तो they will take charge of things, so we need them to be aware about, all those things. How would you want them, like, what would you want them to take from the book
I
when
would
they
say,
read the Joy Bangla Deception? Would it be Tagore's message for the Bengalis where he tells them to embrace Bharat? Like, should they be taking that?
So that is quite prescient of Tagore. He said that Bengal cannot exist without Bharat, which is
Hmm.
a sort of a good message and all. Um, but that is for the Bengalis. I mean, however great Tagore is, his appeal is for Bengalis who think Tagore is their soul and all. For others, Tagore is a great poet and all, but philosopher, poet and all, but not their may not be exactly their soul all the time. But I would say the younger leaders, they have to think in terms of their enemies. If you look at the leftists, nowhere in none of the countries where communism has won, the leftists were close to any majority. They are always a small minority, but they took
Hmm.
over the ruling power in Russia, China, and so many countries. How did it happen? Because they have a narrative in mind, they have a plan in mind, and that's how they acted. So I'll say
They
learn.
also
Like,
know how to They also, for all the leftists, they know how to talk and appease the younger generation. वो एक image बनाते हैं कि this is what you should aspire to be. तुम चाहे धोती भी पहन रहे हो, but like English तुम्हारी वो सराटेदार होनी चाहिए. That is something तुम वो aspiration रखो, वो हमारे side मिलेगा तुम्हें. Somewhere they also sell this narrative constantly.
no, that is true. But I'm saying forget the status. We need capable people. Capable people are not exactly always, go for the status. They go by their own intelligence and all. So from that point of view, you need to learn from your this Satru Bodh. I mean, I think maybe you are referring to this book by Pankaj Saxena ji. So this Satru Bodh is sort of the very important. But the first thing you need to, what I have, why I could write this book, many others could not, because both me and my co-author, we knew our Satrus, the lefts, very well, because having been with them, for a long time, I mean, quite some time at least. So that is why we could write. So you learn from your enemies. I'm saying that even though there is an enemy there, it is not necessary that all the things they know are wrong. There is a lot of things to learn from them as well. So there is a
Yes.
very Indian in our Puranas. There is a tale. uh, मैं हिंदी में ये बताता हूँ, हिंदी में अच्छे आएंगे.
Mhm.
बृहस्पति और शुक्र, ये दोनों एक देवता का गुरु था और ये दानव का गुरु था. तो बृहस्पति का जो बेटा था उसका नाम था कच्छ. कच्छ ने शुक्राचार्य जी के पास चला गया और उनसे उनका सब जो हिडन जो सीक्रेट गुप्त विद्या, वो पता चल के आ गया. फिर आ गया, फिर देवता को सिखाया, फिर देवता लोग को, फिर उसने उन लोग को स्वर्ग से निकाला गया था, फिर वो लोग स्वर्ग को फिर रिकैप्चर कर पाया. सो ऐसे हम लोगों को भी ऐसे उनका जो विद्या है उसको जानना पड़ेगा और उसको उसके ऊपर ही अप्लाई करना पड़ेगा. नहीं तो
Okay.
वो लोग जीत रहे हैं कि इसके कोई मैजिक नहीं है. उनका जो टेक्निक है इसमें पावर है. आपको वो जो शक्ति उसको आत्मस्म करना चाहिए. सो दैट इज ऑल आई थिंक आई विल से.
Thank you so much for taking out time, sir, and thank you so much for discussing the book. The book, of course, is packed with a lot of facts. It is packed with a lot of knowledge. And it is something that we need to be very aware about as an Indian, because with, I mean, the recent volatile situations that we had, say, with Pakistan, we often see that Indians are either bullied or sometimes they're gullible enough to form a zero point 0.5 front against their own country, which they don't even realize that they're doing sometimes. So, with that message, and sir has given a brilliant message for us all. We absolutely recommend that you read this book. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us today. And thank you to our readers and viewers for joining us today as well. We hope to see you next week very soon.
Thank you very much for having me here. And I have one last request to the readers and you. Give some Amazon reviews. For
Yes,
people
sir,
with
definitely.
small social media reach, it helps, to book in Amazon.
नहीं, because the book ना reading उसमें like again like we discuss this almost every time. कई नॉन फिक्शंस को पढ़ने में बहुत टाइम लगता है. इसमें टाइम नहीं लग रहा था, लाइक वो एक जो फ्लो वाज वेरी गुड, तो वो पन्ने अपने आप टर्न होते जा रहे थे।
थैंक यू।
थैंक यू सर।
Thank you so much.